Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or evening, my friends, depending where you are. Where I am in California, it's 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on February the 21st, 2020. I am Elizabeth Windsor Craig, and this is History Reset, brought to you each Saturday by People's Internet Radio in Ireland and Radio Act TV in Israel, to bring valuable information to the public that corporate media refuse to divulge. And yes, I am also Elizabeth. I've had a lot of names. This program is a public service, but you are welcome to please donate to People's Internet Radio to keep the truth coming at you without commercial adverts. Tonight's History Reset show is about the differences between context and behavior. And I want to do some housekeeping, first of all. You know, I donate to People's Internet Radio, and I get 2 hours a week of a produced show. And I've only been using 1 hour of it. And it has occurred to me that there's a second topic, aside from cosmology and how that interacts with history and politics, yakata smackata. There's a second topic that's really a hot one for me. And as you know, I'm an old lady. I'll be 76 next month. And I have a baccalaureate degree. In fact, I was a clinical dietitian back in the 70s, 80s. All right, 80s. I taught at the university senior health, and I taught nutrition, and I taught health in public schools, and I was the dietitian for the Better Health Clinic in Vienna, Virginia. Okay, so I've had a lot to do with health, and in fact, I have written a book on nutrition and health. Okay, by the grace of God, live long enough to endure it all. Okay, which is an empirical look at health and nutrition and what you put in your mouth and how you exercise and what the things you look at. All right. And so I thought starting next week, I'll do a second hour, and it will be separate from the first hour on Facebook. It'll be a separated live video because it's 2 completely different topics. I'm thinking about writing a book, maybe, you know, Sex and the Single Grandma, but that would only be about 5 pages long. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun this morning thinking about all of the information that has become available since I was a teacher in health and nutrition, and all the things that have changed and all the things that have changed in me. And I say, you know, a second hour on health, I'm not exactly sure what to call it. And that's where I need your input. Okay, I need your input. I don't know too much about the people who come to visit with me on Saturdays. But I think possibly there are a number of you who are of the senior set and who might be interested in senior health. And so if you have an idea for a topic that isn't so bland, that's senior health is bland, yeah. Then I want you to please contribute in the comments down below. And we'll do a whole hour in senior topic health. And I'll explain to you the perspective and context in which I am talking about health, which is not that of the allopathic community. Okay, but for today, I had this fantastic aha experience this week. And it had to do with the difference between drama and activity. Vicarious drama versus what's going on now. Doctrine, the established history, the established account, the official history that we have. And you know, I'm not big on official dumb. Yeah, they're dumb. All right. I have my own history because I utilize more than just the one holy book. Now, here's the acceptable holy book. This is the Bible, and it was inspired. The author is said to be the planetary sovereign Yahweh, who came here at Genesis 1:1 and remained for the entire age of Pisces as its sovereign planetary administrator. All right. And Genesis 1:1 begins at the beginning of the age of Pisces, which is 26,800 years ago. And the perspective that it comes with, now, Yahweh was originally with the harmonious universe 00 sector of the universe. And if you're on my Facebook page, I've put the picture of the universe up on the timeline. The timeline is like a great big, it's a torus. Okay, it's a torus. And it's got a central sphere, and it's got outlying spheres. Okay, and there are 12 outlying spheres, and you know them as the zodiac, right? All right. And within those outlying spheres, there are numerous constellations and galaxies. And I have given you a list on the timeline on Facebook, the list that Wiki has of the galaxies we know of. All right. Are you still with me? All right. So the universe is cut into 4 sectors. There's harmonious universe 00, there's harmonious universe 0, there's harmonious universe 1, and harmonious universe 2. And this is discussed in Voyager's 2, which is the summary of harmonious universe 2's cosmology, which they have given to us now, and which says that our world is subject to and due for massive change after our year 2017, which is exactly what's going on. We all know that. All right. So this is HU2. This is HU1. It's HU1 because it's a morality play. And it's presented to us by an originally HU00, the first sector, okay, Sylph by the name of Yahweh, who gave us a morality play as a way to conduct ourselves on this world and achieve the measure of ascension or salvation that we may be able to achieve according to our works, not according to our thoughts, according to our works. And so what has happened, because HU2, Harmonious Universe 2, has kept this enormous detailed history, this enormous litany of what happened to whom, when, and how long, and how this works, and how that works, and how it all fits together, and yakata smackata, and so forth. They got involved and enthralled by the telling of the drama. And in the process of telling of the drama, the simple morality play, the simple, if you want a good society, you have to behave nicely, has gotten lost. And we can witness to this phenomenon on the news constantly. And I'm going to take one discipline at a time and point out a simple fact to you, and then go back and review how that fact is either secreted or ignored in favor of an official story that doesn't refer to the fact. All right. We can start with 5G. 5G is at a frequency that has the capacity to explode water molecules in the human body. And by exploding water molecules, which is H2O, all right, you get 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. So 5G operating on bodies, and we'll say all mammals and birds and so on, has the effect of increasing the hydrogen concentration of the atmosphere at the cost of the oxygen concentration. This is not rocket science, okay? This is not difficult. Several years ago, when I was personally having a problem with sleep apnea, I started calling around to air quality control agencies to find out what I needed to do to increase my uptake of oxygen. Okay. And so I asked at the county level and at the community level and at the state level, do you have a place where you analyze the oxygen saturation of the air? They analyze everything else, but they do not analyze, nor publish, nor track, nor trace the oxygen saturation of the air, which, if it drops below 15%, we all start suffocating. So here is a perfect example of the truth of the matter, that 5G destroys the oxygen in the atmosphere, but the government does not see fit to monitor the oxygen saturation of the atmosphere. That tells you things are a little crazy. They're a little crazy. And this, of course, is why many countries are banning 5G, because of its effects on the atmosphere where it is in use. May have a lot to do with how sick the people are in China, because where the sickness began in China is the primary high-tech area where 5G has been installed. Okay. Okay, let's look at vaccines. When I was a child, I got, I think, 1 or 2 in my whole life, all right? When my children were little, they got about 4 or 5 or 6, over the period of years with boosters. But now there is a schedule for vaccines that overwhelms the body's ability to deal with all of the changes, including and especially the mercury preservatives, okay, which attack the nervous system of the child. Got it? All right. We already know that you don't allow mercury in the water. We already know you don't allow mercury in food. So why do we inject it in our child in a vaccine? That's crazy. Crazy behavior. Not paying attention to the causes and effects of truthful reality and substituting dogma. Okay, let's look somewhere else. Let's look at politics. Let's look at politics. All right. In the 13th, 14th century, we experienced an enlightenment by the a bunch of a bunch of spirits came here that were from a higher mentality, and it's in my book, Prison Planet. Okay, 1947, we hear this story. All right, so we get a bunch of gifted spirits here in the 13th century, and they begin a new process of thinking, which is just like HU2, and which is all about keeping records of what happened in the past and interpreting and analyzing and making judgments about what happened in the past and then living according to those judgments. The problem with living in the past is that you're not dealing with the present. The problem with living in the past is that you're not paying attention to the indicators that tell you that something is changing. All right. And so under the Enlightenment, they began teaching the theory that the world was a spinning ball and that the moon was 226,000 miles away and that it was 2,100 miles in diameter, and that the circumference of the earth is 25,000 miles and so forth. And they began teaching a bunch of stuff that they call theories, which ancient and indigenous knowledge would have laughed at, okay? Because the ancient and indigenous peoples knew that we live on a piece of a planet that is almost destroyed. We have only the toroid energy, volcanic and water distributing system. We live crashed onto a surface with water and ice. And I have a map from 1,000 years ago that shows you that we're just living on the central pieces of that crashed planet, which was Tiamat, not Earth, because Earth was a crystal and it shattered. We live on what's left of Tiamat, half submerged in a lake of seas, and a lot of the other pieces and parts of what's left of this planet are out in and around the rim of Antarctica. Okay. There are people who are looking into this and finding out that the official story of where we live and what we live on is not real. It's not right. It's not true. The Truman Show. Remember the Truman Show? We live in a staged reality. Well, our entire cosmology is a staged reality. It's not what's actually happening, baby. All right. And our moon, because if you have a backyard telescope and you aim at the moon when the moon is full, you can zoom all the way down to the surface, okay? That's what Bruce Sees All does every month, and other guys do it too, all right? And so the moon is not 226,000 miles away. It's not 2,100 miles in diameter. Okay, it's only about 11.8 miles in diameter. It's only about 78 miles up. And it is an interdimensional Stargate. Okay, there are all kinds of races there. It's almost like a zoo. All kinds of races, all kinds of scales. All right. So we are not told what the moon really is. We are not told that our sun has been an artificial piece of technology hooked onto the dome since 2011. All right. We are not told these essential facts about our actual reality. We are given a set of doctrines and beliefs. And then the intellects that watch over us, okay, decide from how we respond and how we react to the deceptions, to the simulations, to the confabulations, whether we decide that we want to know something more real and something better. Let's look at the Smithsonian Institution and its not only neglect, but its destruction of fossils of hominids that are shown to be giants. Okay, giants existed in 6th chapter Genesis. They are described. We know there are several categories of giants. Okay, the Nephilim are the main angels that mated with women and had children, but they had no domicile. They had no sovereign territory. They were basically homeless. The Nephilim are basically homeless. Why does this come up? Well, just in this past week, I found a whole playlist of videos that have been put up that refer to the wars going on between Putin's Russia, Assad's Syria, and Erdogan's Turkey against ETs they call Anunnaki. They call them Anunnaki. Even though they do not, the description that is given of the kind of beings that they've been warring against since 2014 do not match what we know about either the Anunnaki civil society or their physiology. So I, in a couple of cases, when I've seen a couple of these videos, I've tweeted a note to Putin and said, hey, these are not Anunnaki you're fighting against. You're fighting against some unknown group or Nephilim or something. They're not Anunnaki. The Kandahar giant was not Anunnaki. Okay. The 3 giants that were found in stasis in Iran in 2008 were Anunnaki. And of course, because of the non-disclosure elements of the US government, we don't know how that worked out or what happened to the Anunnaki king who was in stasis, and they probably revived him, and he's probably in detention somewhere. But what we do know is that Putin says he has 3 of these giant beings in detention. And this brings up a whole another layer of our problem between doctrine and reality. Because what we have in history since ancient times in cave paintings is paintings of ET races that have come here for some reason to come or stay or visit or come here and build or socialize local people or whatever they've done. They've been coming here since cave paintings was the style. All right, let's put it that way. And in medieval times, medieval artists included UFOs in their paintings. All right, so we know that the UFOs were coming during medieval times. Now, since the 1940s, we have thousands and thousands of images and photos and videos of UFOs coming here. And yet, official dumb, and I use the word D-U-M-B, dumb, continue with their doctrine and dogma that there's no such thing. We're the only life in the universe. There's nobody else. What they're ignoring, what our entire leadership is ignoring, is the gnawing fact that because of where we are located on the floor of the universe ecliptic underneath the galactic, okay, we're under the pole star for our galaxy, and we're stuck here, half submerged in water and ice. We are a place where ETs come here. What do they come here for? Fresh water, respite, a vacation. They come to hang out. They also come here for food. And what do? They abduct people. Okay. They abduct people. Sometimes they eat the people. Sometimes they enslave the people. Sometimes they use the people for experimentation. How do we know this? Because the El Anu Treaty of the Galaxy, which Ashiana Dean talks about in Voyagers 2, agrees with the terms of the Greada Treaty that William Cooper documents, Eisenhower signed, Michael Salla talks about this treaty too. The terms of the Galactic Treaty with the Greys and Anunnaki and others was that humans would continue to be abducted. And how many humans get abducted? Does the government tell us? No. But according to David Paulides, who's a former homicide detective who now works in the figuring out how many people are missing this week business, okay, between 40 and 45,000 human beings are abducted and disappear without a trace every year. What does the mainstream media have to say about it? Nothing. What does the government say? Does the government keep track? No, of course not. They are pandering to and helping the abduction process, which is merely an adjunct to human trafficking. Human trafficking is legal and lawful under the Greada Treaty and the Townshend Treaty. And that's why we have these networks of human traffickers who make money stealing people and selling them somewhere. Sell them to satanic sex networks, sell them off-world to pirates, okay? The slavery of the 15th and 16th century, buying and selling slaves, is alive and well. It's just business in this world. Why is it just business? Because the treaties and their terms and conditions to allow abductions, kidnapping, experimenting on people, enslaving people, selling body parts and selling souls, and they can sell souls, okay, is all kept secret. The truth about behavior is kept secret, and the doctrine that we're the only ones here and there's nobody else continues to make all of us vulnerable to being disappeared whenever covert ops disappears. Okay. You see, again, there's a difference between the official history, the official story, and the facts of the matter. The facts of the matter. All right. In theory, our Constitution set up a government in which there are elections that control who the executive is. There are appointees that are civil servants who are supposed to be above partisanship. And there are local officials who keep elections honest. That's the official story. Is that what's happening? Is that what's happening? Well, it's kind of hard to tell because the mainstream media only tells the doctrines. They only tell the official stories. And they still tell the official stories. Now, I was about 20 years younger when the 9/11 attack occurred. And I was already online. And so I saved about 80 first-person videos of the topic. I saved everything, and I've kept everything. And so I have a page on Facebook which is devoted to the 9/11 story. I've published 2 books. They're both the same text, but one is a large size like this, and the other one is a small size. They're different formats, but they're telling the same story, that we know who profited, and we know who did the planning, and we know who did 9/11, and it wasn't 19 Arabs with box cutters, let us tell you that. But the official story continues, okay? The official story is still the official story, even though it's total bullshit, all right? Just as the assassination story of Kennedy, it has never really surfaced, okay? The Oklahoma City bombing didn't happen the way the official story says. The NASA trip to the moon didn't happen the way the official story says. The NASA's photography in the Clementine mission, the Magellan mission, and the Cassini mission didn't happen the way NASA says, okay? The Challenger accident, well, I don't know what happened, but 6 of the 7 crew members are still alive and working in academia, all right? And nobody says boo about that because the official story is the one that continues. And the reason that we don't and can't fix a single problem we have is because official drama is more important to the people in power than the truth about what actually happened or what is actually happening or what can happen. We already know, for those of us who've been online, that there has been a series of diseases beginning with AIDS and another in SARS and now, several flus that have been patented. They have been deliberately synthesized in order to deliberately cull whole populations of the world, beginning in 1918 with the Spanish flu, and then in the 1981 with AIDS, right? And so now we have a new flu, and there apparently are several different strains having different outcomes. One series of videos says that there is a strain of flu in China that is absolutely fatal all the time, and that's the one that's really got them locked down. That makes sense, okay? But that doesn't help us who have airports where planes come from China to know how to deal with keeping ourselves well in an environment where manufactured, synthesized diseases create profits for corporations, and death is the solution to the problem of life as far as they're concerned. The more people they can take out, the happier they are. Now, another place where we're getting disinfo and misinfo is in our archaeology and anthropology departments that studiously ignore artifacts and stone technologies from thousands of years ago, that studiously ignore the dozens and dozens of pyramids all over this world that were engineered to be electric, magnetic power generators. That's what they were. They had water underneath, and the water cycled through and produced power. That's what the pyramids were for. They had nothing to do with being burial mounts for anybody. All right. And the stone technologies in Siberia are just as dramatic as those in Bolivia and Peru, with monoliths just as large, almost as in the Mideast. And so we are not told the true history of this world either. Okay, we're not told who was here or when, because the dogma is that history is only 6,000 years old since the Bible was first published, although its beginning goes back way further, back to the beginning of the dispensation of Pisces. All right. Apparently, each dispensation, we're now in the age of Aquarius, and this age of Aquarius is going to be 26,672 years long. And we're at a time when the treaties that were set up for the old dispensation need to be updated, renegotiated, and revised so that the circumstances on our world can change to accommodate the circumstances in the larger universe, which is to say, there seem to be a lot of ETs showing up here needing either respite or fresh water or hospitality. And how is it that we are not able to accommodate their needs? And how is it that we are not able, by our law security systems and military to prevent people from being abducted and used, to manage our world the way airports are managed. You know, nowadays they manage airports pretty well. When I went to Oslo, Norway in 2015 and tried to see if I could get a residence card there, they detained me for several days, and they interviewed me and debriefed me and decided that no, they weren't going to let me stay there. And so they escorted me back home. The security people in the detention company, corporation, whatever it was for the government of Norway was very civil. They didn't abuse me in any way. They didn't deprive me of anything. They just kept me sequestered until they made the decision that they didn't want me there. And I wrote all over the top of the paper, I haven't bothered anybody. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't see any reason why they're doing this to me. And I went back home. So the potential to manage the conflicts between races exists and is real. The discipline and skills needed to mediate, arbitrate, conciliate, and settle issues between races, between ideologies, is also present and was present for the 5 years in which I did my graduate work in conflict and dispute analysis and resolution at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. My GPA was, about a 3.4? I did all right. And I taught large groups of people how to solve empirically practical problems, a whole group at a time, utilizing a techno method of problem confrontation devised by John N. Warfield, and he passed on, I guess, in the 90s, but his methods, I have all the text, and I don't understand why the people who call themselves leaders now have no interest. They have no further interest in actually solving any kind of problem. They just like the drama. They like the drama and they like the profits of money laundering and pay to play and the mischief and methodology of Saul Alinsky and the Frankfurt School and the Kalergi Group and the Cloward-Piven Group, all groups trying to grab control so that they could create advantages for themselves that they didn't feel they could obtain legitimately. Right? So we live in a situation where we are constantly bombarded with opinions and stories and dramas and histories and, the whole thing, but nobody is looking at the present time. No one's looking at our present behavior. I've been, I'm on Twitter a lot, and I look at the government's articulations and aspirations about doing good for people. But I have to ask myself, well, what are they doing about the practice of taqiyya, which is to say one thing and do something else, or jizya, which is to set up a protection tax racket. You make people pay you so you don't hurt them. All right. Or what about jihad, which is divide and conquer? It's the old, we're better than everybody else, so we're going to tell you what to do and how to live and what to think. This is the madness of a world where pedagogy, the pedagogy of elite thought, is not on reality and not on today and behavior and how things will work. it's always looking to the past. Well, this is what we did. This is what they did. This is what we said. That's what they said. Now, you might notice if you go back to your Bible, good old Bible, it's a good summary. It's a good book. What Yahweh, the planetary sovereign, did the first thing he did was find a bloodline of intelligent people that he could actually work with, who would actually pay attention to it. And then what he did was he gave them a sample set of civil laws. He probably got it from somewhere else, because being a mid-level architect, I think in the Urantia book, they're called life carriers. He's a life carrier, so he's somewhere in the middle of the universe hierarchies. He has knowledge of other societies, and I believe Yahweh personally, where is he from? It'll come to me. Enki is from the Pleiades, but Yahweh is from Sirius A, and I'm from Sirius A, and that's why I can connect with his thinking. Okay. And so the first thing he did with this people that he accepted as being intelligent enough to follow directions was he gave them a set of sample rules to follow. There's 254 principles of behavior. If you do a good thing, you get a good outcome. If you avoid doing a bad thing, you get a good outcome. All right. If you stop somebody else from doing a bad thing, you get a good outcome. It's all about behavior and outcomes. And then his son, who's the Omega, who is Jesus, all right. When he came here, he found that wasn't sufficient. It wasn't sufficient just to go through the motions of doing good things. You actually have to have the intention, the desire to create a harmonious outcome. And his way of thinking, that of the Omega, is very characteristic of Lyra. He must have had experience on Lyra. And Lyra was annihilated because they had no concept of treachery or deceit. They were all just open and giving and sharing and telling the truth. Well, in this world where drama is more important and commerce is more important than life itself, the doctrines, the Beatitudes of Jesus work out for victimization. And he said, he knew that would happen. He said, I came not to bring peace, but a sword, for a man's enemies will be members of his own house. Okay. He knew he was not bringing peace, but what he also knew was that in the long term, creating good out of the heart has a better outcome than just going through the motions of following somebody's directions in obedience. Okay. So Jesus was not wrong, right? And when Satan said that you can't let ideology overwhelm every soul, that you have to give the soul the room and the space to think their own thoughts, that was not wrong. What Satan's followers have done is gone to an extreme of achieving personal power over ideologies that have turned them into cannibals and savages, which is just horrifying to view. And we see too much of that today. In fact, in the city of Los Angeles, and I believe in Tokyo also, there is a restaurant that serves human meat. And the city of Los Angeles hasn't shut them down. I don't understand why they haven't shut them down. But, you know, that's the deal. That's the deal. That the convoluted commercial environment, if certain people give consent to being intimidated or bullied or abused or murdered. You know, you can sign on the bottom line, and you can be dispatched and utilized, okay, to suit your personal preference. That's not a civil attitude. That's crazy. All right. There's a lot going on that's really, really crazy from the point of view of the creation and from the point of view of how relationships and places harmonize together. All right. If you look at animals, you look at domestic animals and pets, and you see how they have an ethic of their own. And Jordan Peterson calls this the ethic of reciprocity. As I do to you, you do to me. If a couple of rats are young rats are playing, and one is much larger than the other, so he can easily dominate the smaller rat, unless he gives in to the smaller rat 30% of the time, the smaller rat will refuse to play with him anymore. Reciprocity, quid pro quo. I do for you, you do for me. All right. And what you sow is what you have to reap. That is a law. It is not a wish. It is not a rule. It's a law. What it is you sow, you have to reap. And so our behavior is what creates our future. It's not the ideology that we have happened to have accepted at the moment. Okay. In my personal experience, I've gone through several ideologies in my lifetime, and each one became more subtle and more clear than the previous one, because I was looking for a home. I was looking for a place where I could think with people. Well, I haven't found that yet, but I am having a lot of fun, and this is very, very interesting. Okay, so getting our focus returned away from the dramas, the novels, the movies, the videos, the virtual realities, the media that have an agenda that you can identify. All right, there still are sources that have an agenda that's a little harder to identify. RT, BBC is pretty well on the globalist trip. Epoch Times is conservative, but they're not slandering and libeling and naming, blaming, and shaming people, which is a relief, because naming, blaming, and shaming is the short circuit that we fall into when we begin to think that because a person, someone else, is a different race, a different culture, a different ideology, a different orientation, that they're worse, they're wronger and you're righter. Okay, that mentality is not going to work anymore. And the fruit of that mentality, the division of Saul Alinsky and the Frankfurt School and the protocols of the learned elders of Zion and of academia generally focuses on the drama, on the theory of operation, and pay very little attention to their contribution to what is going on now. What am I doing now to be the person that I want to see in the world? What am I doing to be wasteful? What am I doing to speak abusively and defy people who are truly innocent? What am I doing to cause emotional harm? What am I doing? How am I using my point of view as a narcissist would to batter and abuse other people because I'm righter and they're wronger? Do you understand? This is all part of the ego generated drama, which is also in basic to business. It's the basic of the money system, is the ego and the belief that I have to go get, I have to go buy, I got to go have. Okay. There is the drama that is killing us because it's taking our focus away from what we're doing that's in contributing to the problem. If we're not looking for what we're doing that's contributing to the problem, we're part of the problem. Okay. All right, Steve, can we have a couple songs? And I'm going to do a couple things. And then I'm going to talk to you for a little while about this new health idea, having a new health program following on History Reset. And ring off for my friends here at Facebook for now. And we'll see you guys probably by Tuesday or Wednesday. And we'll take a little break now and come back and think about health issues past about the age of 55 and how to reduce our dependencies on the allopathic for money disease monitoring systems. How does that sound, Steve? Are you with me?
I'm here.
Okay, put on some music for a little while.
Okay.
And I'll be right back. Thanks. Okay.